Hello, my name is Coben Blue, and this is the BleuCast. And this is the official first episode. So I'm just gonna talk about myself so you guys can get a feeling for who I am. This is really hard for me because I have really bad anxiety. And this is a way to kind of get things off my chest. And so I'm going to mess up a lot. And I apologize in advance. But I want to continue to try to improve myself. And hopefully other people with mental problems, such as myself, can maybe grow a little more confident in themselves and shine in any area that they want to. I just hope I can get a message out there because I don't know what I want to do with my life because I have borderline, so personality disorder, so I go into thoughts of wanting to kill myself, and that is my solution for any problem that comes up in my life. So it's very hard for me to come up with anything other than that as a solution. So I'm just going to have to force myself through this awkward stage for me to make sure I'm a healthier human being and I don't end up dying, because it always feels like there's a gun to my head with every thought that I process, and I don't like it. And when I have the thoughts just bouncing back and forth in my head, it spirals down into a toxic, just black hole that just sucks in all my positivity that I have and drains me and makes me feel like I can't contain who I am as a person, and then death seems like the only option. So it's very hard for me to wrap my head around, and this is a way that I can just hope that someone can also hear it and then maybe relate to me and talk, so I can talk to them and make a connection so we can have more people talking about mental illness and hopefully have more survivors instead of people dying because they can't control what goes on in their brain. And I don't know what I can do personally. I don't have any credibility. All I have is experience and the fact that I've been hospitalized 4 times for almost dying. The first one, I was working at a gas station at the time, and this is a perfect example of how reckless my decisions. This is a perfect example of how reckless my decisions are, because I would abuse coke on the job. I would go and to the back and drink just so I could escape these feelings in my head. But leading back to the overdose, that day I bought $100 worth of LSD, which at the time I thought was real LSD, but it turned out to be synthetic, and they were quads. So they were 4 times effective, or they were laced 4 times with the chemical. I'm not exactly sure. But anyway, I took one at the start, and then I didn't feel anything, so I went to 3, and then I went to 5, and then I just took the whole sheet, and that was 10 tabs, which would be equivalent to 40 of regular acid when considering the strength. That's my interpretation, at least. I'm not exactly sure, so it doesn't really matter. What matters is that I made a dumb decision, and it led to me having a seizure right when my grandparents picked me up, and then apparently I woke up in the hospital, and I don't remember this at all. And I was just, everyone thought I was doing really well. They described my behavior as like just how it would have been, how I would want myself to be, basically, is how they described it. And I don't remember any of it. I just remember signing my name to be put into a hospitalization where you're an inpatient, and I don't exactly know what the place is called that you go to, because I was so fucked up at the time. But yeah, you go there for like a week, and basically I was on suicide watch, and I had to wait till a therapist okayed me to be able to leave, because if you end up doing it again within 6 months of them letting you leave, then they have liability issues. So that happened 4 times. The second time it was Robitussin, morphine, beer. With all that in my system, it of course made me overdose. And the first 2 overdoses, they were more, I think, not intentional as much, but they were the worst too. And I don't know what damage it did to me. I'm working on trying to figure that out. But the third one, it was I don't even remember what I took, but I know I just wanted to die. It was after I lost my job at Kroger, and I actually didn't lose it. I just decided one day to quit out of nowhere, and I do that a lot with my jobs. I just quit, and I did that, and I regretted it, and I knew it'd be hard to start again. So I was like, maybe this is it. Like, I need to end it now. And that was my thought process then. And it's a scary one because it came all of a sudden out of nowhere, and it just shouldn't be that way for anyone to have to go through that, to feel like you should die just because you don't want to work at a place anymore because you're not happy. And I just wanted to find my happiness, and that was YouTube. But with the things going on with YouTube at the time, I was scared, and with all my mental deficiencies that I have to deal with. I mean, it's not just mainly the borderline, but it stems into other things too, like anxiety, depression. Those are just two, but it just they get my emotions get enhanced very strongly, and so I go from 0 to 100, but it's always against myself. It's always self-hatred, and I don't know why, because I never did anything to hate myself so much, but I still do. And I really just don't know why, and that's the main issue, is why would a human want death so much to try to break everything that is close to you? Like, I would tear up my artwork that I made just because I wanted to hurt myself emotionally, and I didn't know what was causing it at the time. At the time, I was just scared that I would end up like my dad, and that was hard for me. And I took it out on people, like, not intentionally, but the toxicity of my mental disorder really took it out on the people I cared about most. It eventually got to the point where they had to drop me, and this was before all the overdoses. It was just at the time that I was ODing. It was a what I would call like a borderline episode, and it lasted for a year. So I OD'd it 4 times in a year. I haven't OD'd since. And I'm trying to get better ever since then, but it's been confusing because every time it's like a mental reset, and I forget things. And like, even doing this podcast, I have to go back and re-listen to the footage so I can remember what I was talking about. So that's why it's choppy at points. But I just I want to show love and be loved and be happy, and that's my main goal in life. That's my ambitions, and there's a lot I have to do to achieve that, and a lot of the things are just temporary ways to cover up the sadness. So I often get smarter with how I try to hurt myself. So instead of OD, taking stuff to the point where I OD and go to the hospital, I take a little less. Because it gives me a chance to punish myself without having to actually get help, because my mind wants to destroy myself in a way. And if I get help, then I get better, and then the mental illness will fade away to an extent, but it will always be there. But I'll know how to cope with it. But the problem is, one slip up can lead to my death, simply put. So it's kind of fucked, because I don't want to die, at least not yet. I want to, try to help incentivize other people to hopefully make this world a better place. And just, I can die, and I don't like it. I don't like that I try to take my own life. And it's not just that. With the disorder, I will meticulously do these things to make things harder for myself that add stressors in my life. And I won't be able to stop until I realize exactly what I'm doing. And it's hard when when your brain is constantly adapting to new ways to screw yourself over. So, and in a lot of ways, it feels like it's a huge excuse, and I don't know. I hope it's not. I hope that I'm not just using this as an excuse in life, but I have the receipts to prove that I went through these things. So I have a lot of self-doubt, so I don't really know what to do with it. I just have to analyze things and try to come up with the best conclusion for myself, but it's not easy. But I'm not here to just make myself look like I need help right now or anything. Like, I'm good. I just want to tell my story to get the thoughts out, and that's the main point. It's not to show that I'm a victim of this mental disorder, because I don't see it that way. I see mental disorders as a way that our brains evolved to make new, interesting people, because in a way, for early on, humans, a lot of the mental disorders came from survival too. But these mental disorders, they have these pros to them also. They're not just completely cons. Like, you can use it as a tool to improve your life, even though it's there to harm you in a way. And we just have to perceive it in a different way and shine a new light on a new perspective on mental illness, to use it properly and not just try to cover it up or hide it. We need to be proud and loud and just go for what we want to do, and use the positive aspects of our mental illnesses to achieve something greater than we could think that we would be able to, because we're constantly being held down by these thoughts that just won't go away, and you can't escape them unless if you want to tranquilize yourself on a shit ton of drugs and end up almost dying that way. And then what's the point? Like for me, I'm trying to not die, so covering up and trying to escape with drugs kind of in a weird way makes it ironic, because I could easily die from that. But I find humor in it. I try to laugh at my flaws, but it's hard because I'm been alone for a while. I've just been taking things out on myself and not really connecting with people, and it's hard for me. So I'm tired of it. So this is a way to do that. But so I'll go into my fourth OD, so we can get all those in one podcast. But basically, my fourth one was pretty wild. I took, and I don't mean to sound like I'm fetishizing this in any way. Like, it was a horrible thing that I did and a bad decision, and you should try to get help before ever doing something that can permanently damage your life. But back to my story. So basically, I went into the bathroom and I crushed up. It was 8 Ritalin, and they were very strong. I don't remember like the dosage, because I don't take Ritalin anymore. I switched back to Vyvanse. So I took that, 8 of those, crushed them up, snorted them, and then I also took 12 Xanax and snorted those. And I sent a picture to a friend before I did it of the line, and they told my grandma. So I locked myself in the bathroom while I was doing it, and then once I got out, she was calling the cops to do something to get the situation under control. And so I ran barefooted across the golf course and into these woods where there's coyotes and stuff. The apartment complex has a problem with coyotes, like, roaming around and shit. But I hid underneath a bush for 3 hours straight while cops were looking for me, and I could see them walking around. And I eventually came out when a friend called and talked me into getting out of that situation and getting help. But it was a crazy 3 hours, and just like my feet had thorns all in them. It was just really shitty. But I don't think it was more of a suicide attempt, but it was a really bad one because I mixed Ritalin, which is a stimulant, in the upper, with a bunch of Xanax, which is a downer. So it kind of neutralized itself in a way. Still is fucked up, but it I'm guessing, because I'm not a scientist, what happened is it just both came, like, all the problems that would have happened from 8 Ritalin, like a lot of the bad things that would happen didn't, because of the Xanax, and vice versa. So I believe, like, that's maybe the case. So I don't, because it didn't seem like it was nearly as bad of an overdose as the other ones, because I had clear memories this time. And of course I went to the hospital, and it was the last time I OD'd, but it wasn't the end of my drug use. I just got smarter with it, and more punishing towards myself with it. For example, one day, I have this love sack beanbag, and I was laying on it, and I found some fentanyl. I'm not gonna go into how I found it or anything like that, but I got some fentanyl. And I used it, and I knew how likely it is to kill somebody. So what I did is, the only other thing I could think of to get me more fucked up without risking my life was to smell super glue. And that was the worst mistake of my fucking life, because I passed out with a bottle of super glue in my nose, and 1/3 of the bottle poured in my nose and dried in my nostril on the right side. And it's been like a good year and a half to 2 years, and I'm still picking out super glue, and it still bleeds constantly. It bleeds a lot, and the reason I don't get it fixed is because in a weird way, I want to see myself suffer from it so I can learn to not do such stupid things anymore. Because goddamn, I felt like a fucking moron after that. Like, I already don't think that I'm very smart, but when you have to Google how to get rid of super glue out of your nose, and it was industrial strength kind of shit, you feel stupid, especially when the closest thing you find for someone else in that scenario was they got some super glue on the tip of their nose. Like, that was the closest thing that I could find related. And I had this shit in my fucking nostril, like, all the way down. Like, it's still there at this moment. And now it's a funny fucking story that I can tell people now, but at the time, it was fucked. It was a fucked situation. but I learned from it, and in turn, I hope that I slightly became a better human being from it. I think with grazing death so much, I've learned from basically, when you're in a near-death experience or dying, or when you're born, or when you're sleeping, you release DMT in your brain. And I think, DMT can really switch up your way of thinking, and in a good way, but you forget about it. But it can change these neurons, these receptors that are firing neurons and these strong connections. It can turn them off, basically, it seems like. And that's what I was kind of using as a way to fix my problems, because I have no access to actual DMT, and I don't have, I didn't have a psychiatrist at the time, but also there is no DMT psychiatrist thing yet. The closest thing is LSD talk therapy, and I hope good results come from that. But I think DMT is what kind of made me learn and ingrain those messages in my head from those near-death experiences. And I think I grew from it, and I continue to grow from it. I take all the mistakes that I make, and I try to fix them now. And I love criticism because it can be fun to laugh about and make jokes about, and it sparks conversation, and it sparks change, and we always need to continue to change as human beings. We always need to force that into society to change, because with the times, you have to be prepared and ready, and you have to change to progress in life. So, I don't know where to go from here on this podcast, because this is a heavy episode, and it's my first one. And I want to do more, and I hope I end up uploading this, and I hope people see it, and I hope somebody can relate. But I'll try to make them longer in the future. I just wanted to kind of give a sample of who I am and get those things off my mind as soon as possible, so everyone knows that I'm being authentic, and I just really care about wanting to do something in life to prove to my family and friends that I'm not useless, that I have more than I think I do when talking about talent and stuff like that. Anyway, I'm gonna end the episode by plugging my Instagram. It's Coben_Bleu, BLEU. It's spelled the French way because The person that wrote my birth certificate kind of spelt blue wrong. I don't know how. Or maybe they just spelt it the French way on purpose. I don't know. It's really weird, but it's cool. I like it. So I hope there's more to come from this. Oh, and also I do art on my Instagram, so I'm also a soft pastel artist. So you can check out that work. Maybe one day I can put it on shirts and make merch and actually do something with my life instead of laying in bed all day just thinking about what I want to do. And this is it. Sorry, I've made so many ending the podcast kind of thing. Like, I'm ending it now. Bye.